Hi guys, and you're listening to Ebird Online with the second part of my review this week for Before the 90 Days. This is Season 3, Episode 12, King of My Heart. And in this video I'm going to be discussing Avery and Omar and Angela and Michael. Once again, thank you so much for my 10k subscribers. I feel very blessed that everyone's supporting me, but if you've yet to do so, please don't forget to press that subscribe button, and also don't forget to share it on Twitter and your social media, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Ebird99. So first up, we're going to talk about Angela and Michael. And Angela's about to leave Lagos to return back to the US. All my American subscribers tell me they miss her dearly and can't wait to have her back. Honestly, I think at this point about 50% would do a straight swap with Michael. Angela to stay in Lagos and Michael to come to Georgia. And apparently, Angela and Michael are getting engaged. And I'm wondering if I missed something here, or did I just block it out? Sort of like a psychological defence mechanism. That must be it, because I don't recall this engagement. But they're off to see Michael's family to have a big engagement party. I bet Angela's excited. And we see them driving in the car, and Michael's explaining to Angela, "You have to do an introduction to my family." And Angela said, "Oh my god, why do I have to do all this stuff? I don't want to do it." And Michael very patiently explains to her that she's in Africa and this is a tradition and everybody has to do it. "Angela, at least he's telling you what you need to do. Unlike Akinyi and Ben, you have to realise if you're marrying a Nigerian, you have to sometimes partake in Nigerian customs. That's what happens when you marry someone from a different culture." And to the VT, Angela tells us she's still worried about the baby and Michael's mum, and what Michael's mum's going to say when she realises she's 53 and perhaps not fertile. Angela, I think she knows. So they pull up to the house, and the engagement party actually looks really nice. They seem to have pulled out all the stops, and there are tables with lots of cutlery and crockery, and it looks as if a lot of people are going to be turning up. Angela greets Mama like an old long lost friend, and she greets her as if she's pregnant. She's also introduced to Michael's brother, and he looks really happy to see her. Obviously he doesn't know her yet, and he can't have been told too much about her. And whilst I'm looking at Mama Michael, I can't help but think that she's got some excellent genes. I think for her age, she looks amazing. And Angela looks at Mama in her traditional dress and says, "Oh my god, you gonna outshine the fiance." Angela standard. Considering that Mama has such good genes, I'm really surprised she wants to mix them with Angela's. And then Angela's moaning again because she doesn't want to wear the traditional Nigerian dress. And Michael tells her that his sister-in-law is going to dress her and that they have the clothes for her to put on. And she tells us that she's really scared. I actually think, Angela, you're just really rude. Along with your abusive and controlling behaviour, you can now add utterly disrespectful to the list. And the reason I'm so irritated with this is that Angela's actually super confident. We remember how she was when she first got to Nigeria and there was a fight in the street. She leapt out of that car and went to bat for Michael. And she was also far from shy when she had to take the goofballs to task. But suddenly she's shy and retiring when it comes to wearing African dress. But when they put it on, I honestly think it's the best she's ever looked. And she was wearing like a headdress and the full garb. And she did look amazing, and Michael had matching dress. So at the engagement party there was dancing, singing, there were drummers, and Angela really should be more grateful because they pulled out all the stops. I just wondered where the goofballs were. Maybe their invite was lost in the bin. Angela dances with all the other women folk, and suddenly she seems quite comfortable, and in fact, again, quite confident. Sometimes I think Angela just loves to moan. And then when Angela sees Mama, she greets her like a long lost daughter, and she tells Mama she feels like her daughter. "Angela, you're the same age." And then they sit Mama down to give her the news about the fertility clinic. Angela begins, "I know it's really important to you that Michael has a child, and I would like to provide that for you. So we decided to go to a fertility clinic." And Mama laughed. Even Mama knows it's not magic. Next, Angela repeats the lie that her uterus is beautiful. And I guess even if this is true, at least she's beautiful on the inside. That's something, I suppose. She fails to tell Mama she only has one egg stroke cigarette butt left in her ovary. Yes, I think it's highly likely she swallowed a cigarette butt and it's got lost somewhere, and that's what the scan picked up. And then Angela does the thing she claims to hate the most, She tells Mama a big, whopping, massive, colossal lie. She tells her that one way or another they're going to have this baby. Angela, you've been saying all season that you hate Michael because he lies to you all the time. And I've ignored the lie about the date of your last period. And I've ignored the lie that you're only 53. I've also ignored the lie that Skylar said she might donate an egg. I've ignored the lie that you were close to death and almost hospitalised the night you didn't want Michael to go out. But lying to Michael's mother, telling her that you will have a baby, is one step too far. Angela, you're everything you claim to hate about Michael. And I'm actually looking forward to Angela taking Michael to America so that he can leave her for somebody who has a shred of human decency. Angela, you are beyond annoying. And that's everything for Angela and Michael's story for this week. We see that next week in the tell-all, she goes toe-to-toe with Rebecca, and it looks as if once again her propensity for violence rears its ugly head. And it's the one you've all been waiting for. It's Avery and Omar. Last week we saw Avery arrive home, back with her family, after getting married to Omar in Lebanon. It took her 50 hours to do a 10-hour journey. I'm just shocked that Delta fly all the way to Lebanon. And as we all know, Avery's plans are to come back, see a lawyer, apply for the K1 visa, and then go and join Omar in war-torn Syria. So we catch up with Avery and Terry, her mum, and they're off to see that lawyer to organise the visa for Omar. And so on the journey in the car, Terry asks Avery, what happens if it takes you a year to get your visa? And Avery says defiantly, well then I'll go to live in Syria. And Terry tells her, I will not support that. Terry tells Avery that she's being unrealistic and that going to live in Syria is very dangerous. And I put it to Terry that she's been helped by Omar in this, but I think Omar's doing some kind of sneaky reverse psychology, saying to her, yeah, don't worry, come and live in Syria. It's completely safe. Omar, if it's so safe, why are you in such a hurry to get out? And I think Omar knows very well that when Avery gets back to America, she was always going to be absolutely pilloried by every member of her family, and they were all going to be saying, stay here, just apply for a visa. And that's exactly what Omar wanted right from the time he signed up for an American dating site. And I just hope that Omar's dental work is better than his psychology. So Avery and Terry arrive at the lawyers, and Avery sets about explaining the case. And she says, I don't know if you've had a case like this before, an impossible one that costs lots and lots of money, Avery. Yes, he has. Just look at his suit, look at his office. This guy's minted off fools like you. So Avery begins by carefully explaining the situation to the lawyer, and she tells him he's from Syria. At this point, the lawyer looks shocked and scared, and I thought he'd just seen Momo. I always thought Syria was a 5-letter and not a 4-letter word. She continues, he's very intelligent, debatable, and he's a dentist, a student dentist. And the lawyer explains, as Ebird has done so many times before, that because he's Syrian, he'll be subject to a travel ban. And instead of just applying for a visa, they'll have to request a waiver. He says usually a visa would take a year or so, but this would be significant longer due to said travel ban. And he explains to Avery and her mum that he's applied for waivers before. He's never actually had a waiver given, and he's never actually even seen a waiver, or the waiver fairy. And he explains that usually what happens is that you forward him a shit ton of cash for approximately no return, which is incidentally what will happen if you move to Syria, Avery. Avery promptly bursts into tears. Just as well she doesn't run out the room, otherwise Terry could say, back at ya. And if things weren't bad enough, the lawyer rubs it in. He says no waiver's ever been given, all waivers are pending. And he's right, they're waiting until hell freezes over. So my earlier assertion that it would take 3 years to never for a visa was completely wrong. It was from never till when hell freezes over. I stand corrected. Then Terry grasses her up to the lawyer for moving to Syria. Remember Terry? Snitches get stitches and end up in dirty ditches. But Terry's not bothered, she has the bit between her teeth now. And she says she wants to go to Syria. She wants to go and live with him. What do you think? And the lawyer tells her straight, this will lower the chance of you getting a waiver. Mr. Lawyer, that means nothing because you've just said there's no chance of getting a waiver, but I digress. He tells her she needs to show that she has the funds to keep him in America. He tells her that she needs to make sure that she has a steady job. And he also recommends that she needs to show the hardship of separation, and that's difficult for her to do if she's living with Omar in Syria. And at this point I have to say, Oscar for Terry for continuing to look concerned, and for not breaking out into a Tom Brooks style salsa dance around the lawyer's desk. I know I would have done. I don't know how she did it because I would not have been able to help myself. And the lawyer wraps up by saying, if you go he won't get approval. You'll just ruin his chances. Just in case Avery didn't understand the first time. Avery burst into tears and she just couldn't help herself. She was sniffling and saying, "I never thought it would be like this, and it's not fair." And I'm reminded once again that Avery is just a child. So what do we take from this? Well, what we take from it is that Avery has leapt in with absolutely no research. She hasn't tried to get to know Omar properly. She didn't try and find out information and the customs for getting married in Lebanon. She hasn't worked out what money they'll need for this visa and whether she'll need a job, and she hadn't even seen a lawyer before the wedding. Avery is to the visa process what Omar was to the wedding, goddamn clueless. And at this point I gotta tell you, if Avery was any less dim, they'd have to water her twice a day. And when you consider that Omar paid $6,000 for Avery, I'm starting to think that Terry was quite the negotiator and that Omar was robbed. They bid goodbye to the lawyer and they make their way to a restaurant. In the restaurant is Avery's grandmother and her little brother. You might remember the little brother is the one that grassed her up for eating fried chicken when she was a vegetarian. As they sit down, Granny asks, "Is it good news or bad news?" That, Granny, depends on who you ask. Terry says, "Good news, in fact great news." Avery says, "Bad news, in fact horrible news." And I wonder to myself, what would Omar think? And I think it's a tale of two sides. No America would mean bad news for Omar, but no Avery in Syria would mean good news. It would be the toss of a coin. And Avery tells us they're only doing this to him because he's Syrian. Now Avery, that's just not true. It would be exactly the same if he were Iraqi, Iranian, Afghani, Kuwaiti and many other places. And Avery tells us she can't stay away from her husband. There's no way. She couldn't cope. Finally, she comes up with the idea of we'll apply to different countries. It's the first good idea Avery's had, and it's an idea I had back in week 1 if you remember. And Avery says we'll go and live in Dubai or Kuwait or Qatar. And Avery shows us all that she's desperate to be with him. Avery's little brother says, "Oh God, it's so depressing. There are no good options. You would either have to go and be away from our family in a Middle Eastern country, or you'd have to be away from your husband and stay here and have no chance of seeing him for many years." And it strikes me immediately that from the whole of this family, Avery's little brother seems to have the most common sense. Petition for him to be named head of the family. I think they get on much better. Granny pipes up and she says, "I think I would find it very difficult to go to the Middle East." Why, Granny? Are you scared of planes? Or are you just playing hardball? Unfortunately, Avery really doesn't seem to care. And then Granny says, "I'd prefer you to be with someone you love." And Avery says, "It's hard for me. I don't want to choose." And she carefully explains her impossible choice. Either she gives up her own family, or she gives up the idea of having a family herself with her husband Omar. She also tells us that Omar doesn't know anything about the travel ban. Avery, I'll think you find he does. If not, then he's probably the kind of dentist to pull out all your teeth with no examination and no x-ray. If that is the case, then Omar's a certified dimwit. And then we see her ringing Omar. She asks him when he'll be available for FaceTime. He tells her in about 1 hour. Let's hope the phone lines aren't bombed in the next hour. And I wonder what he's doing for the next hour. Maybe he's with his gym partner, pumping weight. And that's about everything this week for Omar and Avery. And next week we see Avery ask Omar, "What will you do if I'm away for a few years? Will we still be married?" And Omar tells her, "I don't know." And Avery says, "I wonder how strong our marriage really ever was." Oh God, Avery, stop with all the teenaged angst. For once I think Omar was just being straight with you. He doesn't know a few years is a long time for anybody. Avery may as well begin to learn how to suppress her behaviour now. Omar has already displayed a propensity to be thoroughly exasperated by it. And Omar, for once, I'm with you. But I'm left with one feeling. If ever I thought Avery was clueless, this really takes the biscuit. She hadn't been to see a lawyer, and she hadn't as much as even Googled how to get somebody over from Syria before she went to Lebanon to get married. They say love is blind, but there's none so blind as those who don't want to see. This is the end of part 2. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to let me know all your thoughts. Will Omar be getting false teeth before he sets foot on US soil? I've got a feeling he will. Is Angela respectful of Michael's culture, and is she displaying double standards by lying to his mum? Let me know what you think in comments. I love reading through them all, and thank you guys so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.